would you say it's through uh give me a second, give me a second.
If
Hold up.
abduction, induction, or deduction.
Sorry, my dad was telling me something. Okay. So like what would you say like probability is determined by, or like possibility is determined by? Would you say it's like would you agree it's like internal contradiction?
Sure.
Okay. Well then I can just say like if God exists then he must exist necessarily. Or either God exists necessarily or he doesn't, right? So if God doesn't have a necessary existence, then he necessarily doesn't exist. So therefore, either God has necessary existence or he doesn't have necessary existence. You agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And if God necessarily doesn't have necessary existence, then God necessarily doesn't exist. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, either God has a necessary existence or he necessarily doesn't exist. However,
Okay.
it is not the case that God necessarily doesn't exist, therefore God does have necessary existence. If
How
we're
do
going
you
like possible worlds, right?
okay?
There's a possible world where God
How do
could
you
exist.
how do you know possible worlds are real? And then how do you determine that God is possible?
How do I determine God is possible?
Yeah, and then how do you also determine possible worlds are real? Because there are objections to possible world theory, like necessitarianism. So that's presupposing the falsity of necessitarianism. So I just want to know how would you like demonstrate the falsity of necessitarianism, and also how would God even be a possibility?
God, okay, how would God be a possibility? Well, then we can just get into like other ontological arguments for it to suppose or supporting that, right?
Okay.
Okay, so like we know how human laws would come into existence, right?
Like,
They're enacted by like legislators, right? Who have like, authority to pass such laws.
it depends on which like government, because they're like different
Well, yeah,
governments have
those are
different.
like absolute monarchs, But like,
Yeah.
we're just going like an our country, like it's just an analogy.
Okay. Sure.
So like,
Yeah.
okay, so how then should the existence of moral laws then be explained?
What did you say?
What's
How
that?
did moral laws come about?
So yeah, so if we know human laws come into existence through like let's
Hmm.
say a legislator or a king and assuming it's taking part in an monarchy, right? Or like
Hmm.
any government system. And then how then should the existence of a moral laws be
I don't think
when,
moral
for
laws exist.
example, like what?
I don't think moral laws exist. So
You don't think moral laws exist? What do you mean?
I don't think there is some law saying something is moral or not moral.
Okay. So it's okay. So it'd be plausible to hold that they must be similarly grounded in some appropriate moral authority, right? And a plausible candidate to fulfill this role would be God, as there are objective moral obligations. Like let's okay, so let's get into. Would you like so essentially,
Well,
right? So God would be necessary to explain the human's awareness of moral truth, right? And if one believes that this moral awareness or one's view of moral truths are either
hold on.
necessary
Can we
truths
pause
or
right here for a second?
contingent truths, yeah,
Hold on. Can we pause right here for a second? Well, that's
yeah, yeah.
presupposing there is some moral truth at all. Like you
Well,
still haven't.
I'm getting into like the moral truth
Yeah, I
right now.
don't think there is a moral truth at all.
Okay, well, I'm going over why there is.
Okay. Go.
Okay, so for example, it would be obviously contingent, right? That it is wrong to drop an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, right?
What do
Since it is
you mean?
contingent
What do
also
you mean
that
by
there
contingent?
exists a city such as Hiroshima, right?
What do you mean
But
by contingent?
what do I mean by contingent?
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of axiomatic here in the context I'm using it in?
Are you talking about the modal term of contingency or just like the
Yeah.
like common? Okay, well, I just said that presupposes the falsity of necessitarianism. You still haven't
Why?
demonstrated the falsity. Do you know what necessitarianism is?
Would you like to explain it?
Necessitarianism is the belief that everything is necessary and nothing is contingent. So when you say there are contingent things, that presupposes the falsity of necessitarianism. And I'm asking you, well, how do you make that presupposition unless you have a defeater for necessitarianism?
Okay. So you're saying everything is necessarily true.
I'm not claiming it. I'm saying you made the presupposition that that belief is false. So what is your
Okay.
justification for that
What is
presupposition?
my justification? I could just lie about something that it would not necessarily be true because I lied about it.
Well, that's not the modal term of like necessary and contingent. I don't what?
No. That's going against what you said. Necessitarianism, whatever the fuck. The
How does
definition
it
of
go?
it, right?
How does it go
Because
against?
you said it. You said right that that by its own definition, it'd be like that everything would have a necessary truth. That everything is a necessary truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, if I can lie about something, let's say I lied about something, then it is necessarily untrue.
Do you know what I mean by necessary truth?
Uh, I'm
It means
pretty
it
sure.
couldn't
Would you
happen
like
another
to
way.
explain yourself?
It means it could not happen another way. So an example of a contingent thing and a necessary thing would be like this book. This book could have not been made this book, making it contingent. So in some possible world, this book does not exist. Necessitarianism says no, things are have causes, and these causes have causes go down a causal chain. So it could not have been different because of this causal chain, meaning it's necessary. So
Okay, so
you
because of
lying
cause.
would be a necessary action, all right, due to
Oh,
necessitarianism. So you saying,
well,
well, I can lie doesn't mean anything.
okay. So well then we could just look at like a natural laws and order, like things in physics that we know the effect of. Like we know, for example, like let's say law A. This is law in physics, right? But there are situations in which we do not know the causation for that law. We don't know the
Mm,
effect. Same the same way we don't know exactly what is inside an atom or a neutrino, right?
mhm.
This is again, it's kind of I guess you could say it's a little iffy,
Yeah,
right?
that's
It's
an
very
argument from ignorance.
contradictory.
No, that's not a contradictory. That's just an argument from ignorance.
Why is
Because
it
you're
not
saying,
argument for ignorance if I
saying
propose something contradicting it?
no,
It'd be an
you're not.
argument for ignorance if I just didn't say anything. I'm like, well,
Well, you're
you know,
saying, well,
it's
we don't know the causes for this thing, therefore it doesn't have a cause. That's what you're saying.
no, I'm not saying it doesn't have a. Okay. So reinstate what you were saying, and then I can go over mine.
Nec- Necessitarianism says that all things are necessary because it follows a causal chain. Now, even if we aren't aware of the certain cause for a specific thing, that doesn't necessarily mean that there is no cause for it. Like virtual
Sure.
particles, for example. We don't know what causes them, but that doesn't necessarily mean there is no cause for it. It's just a
Yeah.
cause we haven't
So
seen.
there's no scientific. So like again, so that kind of allude to the existence of a creator who can create things that
No,
are supermental to humans. Since we know what God would necessarily be, some omniscient being, right? Someone who knows
well,
everything in which He created. Then
I don't
these
know
things
how
that we
you
don't know, God would
how
know.
you
So it
arrive
makes
at.
sense that He is the cause of the explanation we cannot understand.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Because
Why?
I don't know how you arrived at God, and what do you mean it would make sense that He was the cause for
So
something you had no?
if we don't have like the cause, we don't know why this happens, right?
We wouldn't just
It's super
randomly
mental
create
to
it.
us,
I'm gonna
right?
give you an
But it
example.
happens, and
Mm-hmm.
you could say and the fact that it happens that and its chain implies it would have some or so like I'll give you an example. I'm kind of getting into like the designer, right? That everything
Mm-hmm.
with the design has a designer. So these things that happen
No.
that necessarily do happen as a truth, we know they happen. We do not know the
Mm-hmm.
cause of them, however, and they happen naturally in order,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's chaotic or not,
Okay.
which would allude to a great designer, someone who would have created this. And
How
I'm
do you
saying that would
determine?
be God.
How do you determine if something is designed or not designed? What
How
criteria
do I
is in a
determine
design?
something is designed? What
Yeah.
criteria?
What is something natural and what is designed? What is the characteristics that differentiate the
The differentiate what? Sorry, I don't know if
what
you
are
cut
the
out.
okay? What are the
Uh,
characteristics that differentiate something that is designed and something that is not designed?
why does that matter here? I'm saying like
It's because I'm
okay,
trying
okay.
to see your
Let me
method
let me
on
let me give
determining.
you like the definition of like of the design. Right?
Okay.
A plan or drawing produced to show the look and function of works or of a building, garment, or other objects before it is built or made, an arrangement of lines or shapes created to form a pattern or decoration, the design upon the look and functioning of something. Uh, there are more definitions. Do you want me to go over those
So
too?
I'm asking you, how do you recognize a design versus something that is natural?
Well, I'm
What
saying that these
quality?
natural orders and things that can be natural. For
Well,
example, like okay, so let's take a look at a clock, right?
mm-hmm.
So you'd say like a clock is designed, right?
Yes.
Okay, so a clock is designed, right? So so essentially prerequisite of like a watch, it was like you would agree that it was like a watch shows that it was put together for an intelligent purpose, right? That purpose is to keep time. It also like
Well,
would have a spring to give it motion. It has a series of wheels to transmit this motion. The wheels are made of
mhm,
brass, so they do not rust, and the spring would be is made of steel because of the resilience in the material. And the front cover is of glass or plastic, so that one can see through it. And the world shows an even greater evidence of design than a watch, right?
mhm,
These natural orders, these things, these happen. Like let's say, I can find you like exact numbers, but let's say we would happen to exist, or the planet would be placed a few inches, a few coordinates closer to the sun, we'd be fried. Or if we were positioned any significant amount further away from it, we'd freeze to death.
mhm.
Everything that happens, or everything that has happened necessarily in this world, and I'm not saying like absolutely everything, but the
Okay.
majority of things, right, happen, and
Yeah. I just have
them
I
happening
just have,
is like, for example, Darwinism is leads us to where we are,
I just have a
right?
few things to say.
Okay.
One, you're making it seem like it is something special that life evolved on a planet that was suitable for life. That's not really a surprise. Because the thing is like the universe actually isn't like majority life. It's actually most of it is death, actually, and not sustainable for life. So I don't think it's should be taken as something like a miracle that there's life on a planet that has the possibility of sustaining it. And also, you never answer the question what characteristics are apparent in something that is designed and that are not apparent into something that is natural. What
Okay. Well,
what
I can answer that.
what
Let me give.
standards do you use to differentiate the two?
Okay.
What method do you use? My bad.
What method do I use? Let me.
And can well, I don't want to make a straw man here, but it seems you're using complexity as a method of design to recognize design. And
Yeah,
that's not, yeah,
that is
yeah,
part of it.
that is an invalid method of recognizing design. That's not how you do it.
Why?
You recognize design by evidence of a designer. And see, like you said, a watch, right? Well, we
Mhm.
know based on previous experiences, all watches are made by people and buildings as well. All of these things are made by people. So when we see if we were to see just before anybody made watches and we were to see them produced naturally and just appear out of like the ground or something, or they were to appear over time through like natural processes, so we could say this is natural because there is no evidence to conclude that it was designed, right? Because we wouldn't say a rock has a designer because there is no evidence for a design, right? But buildings and watches and clocks, all of our evidence indicates a designer. of our previous knowledge also indicates it. But when we go to the universe is complex, I'll say that. But there is no evidence that would indicate, or background evidence, or any other universes to test this on. So we wouldn't be able to conclude there is some designer or anything. It'll just be, well, I don't know how this is, so maybe something did it. That's kind of what
Okay.
it seems. Yeah. So what evidence do you have that would lead to a conclusion that there's a designer? Complexity is not how you recognize it.
Okay. So again, this falls under a little bit of complexity, but it does adhere to your definition or what you gave, or what you proposed would be something that is designed. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
so Darwin, right, argued that the order of the universe is not the result of conscious activity like a mind or God, or it is natural selection. But so did you agree to that, right? That's what like Darwin was kind of arguing with, like natural selection, that it all happens naturally, like
Well,
the the
I guess,
kind of like
yeah.
the law he proposed. Yeah, okay. And but natural selection can explain how natural elements give rise to life, nor why these elements should give rise to living as
Oh,
opposed to non-living things, right? So this entire process of like organic development invokes information processing, right? Like information shades in RNA,
mm-hmm.
and natural selection is direction, suggesting that only the fit survive, but placing no requirements on direction on the fits toward greater complexity, which is obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So an entropic argument would suggest a fine-tuned universe as a
Mm-mm.
prerequisite for life, something that is fine-tuned,
Mm-mm.
something that was would have been designed for life.
Well, if the universe is fine-tuned for life, why is there only one known planet with life?
Why does that matter?
Because you're saying that the universe is designed for life, but there is no life in the majority of the universe.
But there is life here.
I said in the majority. Earth
I
is
don't I
not
don't
in the
care
majority.
about that. I don't care about the majority. The fact that there is life in a
Okay.
universe that consists of inorganic matter, some
Okay.
step that consist of things that
Well,
shouldn't be
you're
able
saying.
to give life, right?
Well, do you know
But
what
the
abiogenesis? Do
fact,
you know what abiogenesis is?
uh, repeat that please.
Do you know what the process of abiogenesis is?
Biogenesis, no.
Well, abiogenesis is basically the theory on how non-living matter can produce organic matter or living matter. And basically, certain chemical reactions can create amino acids, and this has been tested, and scientists can make amino acids, which are the building blocks of life in a lab. And so, Earth, its environment, like 3.8 billion years ago, was sustainable for these chemicals to, come into contact and start the process of abiogenesis. And once organic matter was like not created, but it came, I don't want to say like came into existence, but it formed into existence, then you would say evolution was started at that point after the process of abiogenesis. So in no way there is no
Wait,
evidence
hold on.
for it.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to go in like 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
We
but
can
yeah, sorry. I was just letting you know. Continue.
Okay, so there in no way is evidence of some hyper being or super intelligent being that designed everything, and there is actual evidence or basic life basically being accidental, or not accidental because I was arguing for necessitarianism. Being natural, that's a better word.
So then so you're saying there's probability or possibility that it was an accidental, right?
There's a preponderance of evidence that the origin of life is natural and not supernatural.
Right. So, but if I were to, for example, give you evidence or prove that probably there is the probability or possibility that God could exist, right? And if he could exist in one possible world, then he would be able to
Well,
exist in all. Because
well, this
he's a
goes back to my
maximally
very.
great being, and
Hold on,
possibility is determined by internal contradiction.
hold on. This goes back to my very first point on how that presupposes the falsity of necessitarianism, and
The
then you would
falsity
need
of
to.
necessary. But then didn't I
Yeah,
address that already? Didn't I address this?
no, you didn't. You just said I could lie, but that doesn't mean anything about necessitarianism, right?
And then they went into like the causation shit, right? Like
Yeah,
the causal effects, or like the causal, like a chain of
yeah,
causation.
about how we don't know the causes for certain things, and I explained how that's not an argument on how there is no cause. That just means we don't know of the cause. And I gave examples that coincide with your like argument, but that does not prove your argument is true, right? So
Okay.
your argument about possibility is based on a lot of assumptions that I don't think are justified.
What assumptions?
The assumption that necessitarianism is false, that you haven't
So if
justified,
I
you haven't.
were to even, if I was able to, let's say, like counter that, then would you say it's not based on a lot of assumptions? Then it would be an
Well,
objectively
it,
probable outcome.
well, no, there's still more assumptions than that, because when you say God is a maximally great being, that's meaning that like assumes that existence is a great making property, which you'd have to justify why existence is a great making property. Then you'd have to justify why necessary existence is greater than just possible existence, right? There's a lot of assumptions within the modal ontological argument, right? Because even Plato, he like talks about how certain things like the Platonic solids, how they don't actually exist and are more perfect than actual solids. So when God is the maximally great being or maximally perfect
Well
being,
then,
that doesn't necessarily entail existence, right?
okay, okay, okay. So we say we live in a platonic world then?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that
Okay, okay. But would you agree to that?
I don't know. I don't know that question.
Can you? Oh yeah, let me mute the person. It's like I don't know if it's my mic audio or if it's okay. He's muted. Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, everything was like going on echo.
Okay.
Okay, so then would you like for me to go a little more in depth on like necessitarianism then, or and
Yeah.
stem off from there? I don't have much time left, so we could probably continue. But
Yeah, we could do this later. But yeah, if you can show how necessitarianism is false and why existence is a great making property or a perfect making property,
okay,
yeah, that would show your argument
all right,
better. I still think there are other problems. Start off.
that's fine. So okay, so if you're saying okay, so you obviously I'm guessing you like to know the difference between not rationalism, utilitarianism, right?
Wait, rationalism and what?
Necessitarianism.
I don't know what rationalism is, no, but I know what necessitarianism is.
Well, we can discuss this, because then I think that's like a viable contradiction, or like I guess you could say quote unquote debunk to necessitarianism.
Okay, yeah, what is rationalism?
So rationalism is just like the train of thought, I guess you could say, of so basing reason instead of so okay, so there's like many different views of rationalism, so like we can go over like the Western view of it. So it would essentially would be like holding the reality itself, right? And that it has an inherently logical structure. So that it presupposes that that reality itself would have an inherently logical structure, and it asserts that a class of truths exists as an intellect can that intellect can grasp directly. So we can I can go more in depth on it, if that's fine with you.
Do you know what determinism is?
Yeah. Like what type?
Just like regular. Nothing is like free. Nothing is random.
Okay, so like the free will then.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
necessitarianism and determinism are very similar.
Yeah.
The thing about possible worlds is that it's possible something could have been different, but determinism says no, everything's determined, meaning nothing could be changed. And necessitarianism follows that same line of logic that since everything is functions under this causal relations, then nothing could have been changed. And I still don't understand the rationalism point. Not like well,
Yeah, I can go more in depth. I was like very like off the top of my head.
okay, yeah.
Okay, that's fine with me. So what are we gonna so we're gonna go over necessitarianism and
I was just this is another question, but so let's like assuming that we accept the necessitarianism is false. I just want to go skip ahead really quick and just ask you this: why would existence be a great making property? Because if God is a maximally great being, he must exist. Well, why? That's assuming existence is a great making property, and I just want to know why. So I can give examples where it's not.
hello?
Okay.
Sorry, did I cut out?
Uh, well, you just said hold on, so I don't know. I didn't hear what you said. What do you say?
Okay, so I was going like okay, so like when we're able to like resume, what do we be doing? So you said necessitarianism.
We can do the necessitarianism thing when you're ready
Okay,
again.
so then and then you brought up determinism. So when it would be clash ideologies like possibilism versus determinism then.
Yeah, I brought up determinism to make sense of necessitarianism because they're the same. They're basically the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, I agree to that. Okay, well then I would just argue against necessitarianism with possibilism.
Okay, sure.
To
All
like
right.
the direct, yeah.
Yeah, just tell me when you're free again, and we can continue.
Okay, yeah. I might be good later. Like I don't know, 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours. I
All
might be
right.
good
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
I'm not sure.
I should be online then.
Okay,
All right.
all right. See you, bro.